It is the end of the Dana Holgerson era with the Houston Cougars, and one of the hottest names in Group of Five has entered to coach this team out of the Big 12 Conference. It is Willie Fritz, coming over from Tulane, had tremendous success there, took Tulane to a New Year's Six bowl game. In fact, was in contention for a New Year's Six bowl game last year, and he's looking to right the ship in Houston. But will it take a couple years, or is Willie Fritz ready to get off and running with the Cougars in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you back to prediction season. It's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams. It means I'm doing your favorite team. We only have about 5 or so Power 4 teams left. I actually believe we have 6 after this. I could be wrong on that, but regardless, we're almost done with the Power 4 teams. If you're a college football nerd like I am, you got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you hear my thoughts on every team around the nation. Of course, if a video isn't already up, you got to go back and watch my other videos, but there are more ways than watching my videos, of which is a huge way to help support the channel. Again, you can also subscribe, like, comment, share my videos, and anything else you do to interact with the channel. Help support what I do here on YouTube. And with all that out of the way, let's talk about Willie Fritz's new team. That's the Houston Cougars in 2024. How do we do predictions this season? Well, we dive on into the team's offense, we dive into the defense, and at the end, we'll go through the team's schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. But I do have a couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. And with no more time wasted, let's talk about the Houston Cougar offense here in 2024. No notable losses at the quarterback position, so you get everybody coming back as well as a transfer coming in, of which he ended up having one too many S's in his name. But your main starting quarterback from last season was a former Texas Tech quarterback. That was Donovan Smith, and he played really well for the Cougars last season for the most part. 2,801 yards, 22 touchdowns on 64.5% completion percentage, 64.5, I guess I should say would be more correct. But he did throw 13 interceptions last season, and you want to see that number get cut back down. And the yards number, he could easily get to 3,000 yards. The touchdown number, maybe you're looking for 25 to 30 touchdowns out of Donovan Smith this season. But regardless, he should be that starting quarterback. His backup is going to be Uwe Ale. I do believe that is how you say that name. If I am wrong, please correct me in the comment section down below. I'd love to know how to pronounce that. But Uwe Ale was the primary backup last year. Only threw 8 passes. It'll probably be similar here in 2024, with Donovan Smith getting most of the reps and Ale coming in to play who knows how many snaps. But you do get a transfer coming over from the portal in Zion Chris. He is going to be coming over here from Louisiana. Who knows, again, what kind of role he is going to play, regardless of what Ale and Chris play in this quarterback room, what kind of role they play. Donovan Smith is going to be the guy. He also had 428 rushing yards with 6 rushing touchdowns, and that was the team lead last season. This was a rushing attack that overall just wasn't very good. Well, Willie Fritz had a lot of pretty good rushing attacks at Tulane. That should change here, as now we dive on into talking about the running back room. You do lose Brandon Campbell, who's gone through the portal, but he was more of a depth piece in this room anyway, so your main 3 guys are going to be coming back. Parker Jenkins is back as the team's leading rusher from a season ago, 464 yards and 3 touchdowns for him last season. You also do get Stacy Snead back, who had 282 yards, tack on 1 touchdown there as well. And a former West Virginia player, and Tony Mathis Jr., you get him back here as well to give some depth to this running back room. So Jenkins, Snead, Mathis, you got some pretty good talent in this running back room. You want to see it improve from where it was a season ago. Wide receiver room, well, this is where you lose a lot of your big ticket players. Samuel Brown and Matthew Golden are 2 really talented wide receivers that have left through the transfer portal. Brown was the team's leading receiver last year. He had 815 yards on the team high, 62 catches with 3 receiving touchdowns. You want to know where he's playing ball next fall, or I should say this fall? Well, he's going over to Miami is Sam Brown. Matthew Golden is going over to play for Texas. Last season, for Golden, 404 yards and a team-high 6 touchdowns. Well, it was tied for the team high. There were 6 touchdowns on 38 catches. So both of those guys are going to play for Power 5, or I guess Power 4 programs that are more ready to compete for national championships, right? Again, just to recap, Matthew Golden going over to Texas, and Sam Brown is going over to Miami. You also do lose Dalton Carnes in this room as well. He was more of a depth piece he was not a depth piece, actually. I'm taking a look at the wrong guy. He had 263 yards and 1 touchdown last season. Yes, you could argue depth piece. He definitely sat behind Brown, Golden, and a couple guys we're about to talk about in a second. But still, 263 yards, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's some pretty solid production leaving this room through the transfer portal. But you do get two very talented and very key players back. That is Joseph Manjack and Stephon Johnson. Manjack last season had 577 yards and again was tied for that team high with 6 touchdowns on 46 catches last season. And Stephon Johnson, 277 yards, 3 touchdowns. Again, nothing to sneeze at there. Pretty solid production. Jonah Wilson also comes back to this wide receiver room. He only had 2 catches, but did have 60 yards, being a 60-yard touchdown pass last season. And you do get some pieces coming over through the transfer portal. Marquise Shoulders is coming over from Tulsa, as is Devin Williams. So you get a couple Golden Hurricane transfers. And Mekhi Muse is a transfer coming over from Georgia. And in your tight end room, Michael Laughlin does leave. He has run out of eligibility. He has graduated. But you do get Matt Barnes back. Barnes, however you say that last name. I apologize for any mispronunciation. As well as Malik Carr and Jaden York, who both come in through the transfer portal. And might I mention a couple freshmen in this wide receiver room that could prove to be pretty big pieces for Willie Fritz's team. That is Jayshon Ridgel and Kobe Young. They are coming in as freshmen that, yes, are sitting back a little bit in this wide receiver depth chart, but could make an impact if they get playing time here in Houston in 2024. On the offensive line, though, I mean, you do lose a lot of production from the offensive line last season. Of course, production on the offensive line is snaps. You lose a lot of snaps and a lot of starts from last season. Patrick Paul has gone off to the NFL. You'll see him playing on Sundays. Tyler Johnson and Ruben Unaji, and I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize. They are both gone through the transfer portal. And Jack Freeman, well, he's run out of eligibility. He has graduated. So you get Tank Jenkins, Caden Bowie, David Ndukwe, Shamar Habdi Lee, and Demetrius Hunter, all coming back in to this offensive line room, while Jake Wiley, Cedric Melton, and a couple other offensive line transfers enter this room. But I do believe that a combination of those 7 guys right there will be starters on the offensive line. So overall, when you talk about Houston's offense, run through things quickly. Donovan Smith, can he improve that interception number from a season ago? Can he be a little bit of a better decision maker with the football? If he can be, I mean, 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, especially now in the Willie Fritz system, seems very, very likely. You have a lot of good skill position players. Let's see the run game take a step up in the right direction. But Houston, I think they got a lot of solid talent on the offensive end. Now we got to talk about the defense for the Houston Cougars here in 2024. A season ago, well, it overall wasn't that great. It wasn't a very good pass defense, wasn't a very good rush defense. It, for the most part, was not good on third down at all. They allowed almost 50% conversion rate on third down to opposing offenses last season, allowed over 30 points per game. I mean, pretty much every stat that you see right over here is on the side of, okay, that definitely is something that needs fixed. And you lose a ton of talent either through the transfer portal, the graduation, or in the case of your defensive line, a couple really high impact players are gone to the NFL. Nelson Caesar and David Ugwogbu, and I probably butchered that last name as well. If I didn't, hey, kudos to me. But Caesar and Ugwogbu were 2 very, very talented pieces on the defensive line last season. Caesar, sort of that edge rusher type player, 43 tackles, and led the Cougar defense with 9.5 sacks last season. Ugwogbu right behind him, 41 tackles, 3 sacks last year. But the losses on the defensive line do not stop there. Jamari Caldwell is gone. Chiadoze Nwankwo is also gone, and you do lose another piece to that defensive line through the transfer portal as well. But Caldwell, 6.5 sacks last season, really, really talented piece gone there. Nwankwo last year, 25 tackles, did have 1 sack, was pretty impactful. A lot of your big contributors on the defensive line from last season, well, they're all gone. And I did realize I had a misspelling here as well. That's Hakeem Ajijalaya. Probably said that last name wrong. I need to have more confidence in that. No, Hakeem Jalaya will be leaving this room again. That's the other loss through the transfer portal I alluded to a little bit ago. So what does your defensive line room look like in 2024? Well, Anthony Holmes Jr. is going to be coming back, had 21 tackles, 2.5 sacks last year. But other than that, it's a bunch of depth guys coming back. Brandon Mack and Talik Robbins among those that will probably end up getting the most playing time. But a lot of this defensive line for Willie Fritz in 2024 built through the transfer portal. I just said that name. Keith Cooper is transferring in. He is coming over from Tulane, so following Willie Fritz over. That's a theme here with some of the defensive players you'll see. Xavier Stillman, Everett Rogers, and Quindario Lee are also all transfers that enter here. You also do have Gabe Peterson coming over from New Mexico State. Carlos Allen is coming over from Kennesaw State. So you do have your fair share of talented defensive lineman transfers that'll see big minutes this upcoming season. Linebacker room, Traylon Payne is off through the transfer portal. He's going to go play his college football in 2024 elsewhere. 27 tackles for him last year. But a lot of guys do leave due to graduation. They have no more eligibility left. Malik Robinson is a big one, 81 tackles. He was second leading tackler on the team last year. Hassan Hippolyte, who was a very impactful player during his time in Houston, 33 tackles for him last year. And Marcus Cheeks. All of those guys are gone. 23 tackles, 1 sack, couple passes defended for Cheeks last season. So what does your linebacker room look like? Where the only notable returner that you had on the roster last year is Jamal Morris, 63 tackles, 5 passes defended a season ago for him. Again, much like the defensive line, a lot of the linebacker room built through the transfer portal. Michael Batten, Corey Platt Jr., another former Tulane player who has followed Willie Fritz over to Houston, and Kendra Gant are all here in this linebacker room coming in through the transfer portal. Defensive back room, again, a lot of solid talent going to be gone here as well. Isaiah Hamilton, 4 interceptions, 4 pass defended. That interception number led the team last season. Did also have, I believe, the 1 lone pick 6 for Houston last year. I just fact-checked that. That is correct. He is off through the transfer portal. He'll be playing his college ball elsewhere, while guys like Malik Fleming, Brian George, and Alex Hogan have all graduated, and that left the cornerback room a little thin. However, you do get Latrell McCutcheon coming back here. He had himself a fairly decent season last year. Again, didn't get much playing time as, again, the cornerback room left thin because all those guys were really solid contributors to that team last season. Fleming, of which 5 passes defended, 3 interceptions a season ago. So you do get Latrell McCutcheon back as well as Jalen Emery. But again, a lot of notable contributors will come in through the transfer portal. Kristen Davis and Jeremiah Wilson come in. In the safety room, you do lose Antonio Brooks, had 32 tackles last year. He's run out of eligibility. But your leading tackler in AJ Halsey does come back. 97 tackles, 3 pass defended for him last season. Jawan Gaston also returns, and a lot more pieces through the transfer portal. Brian Massey, Hershey McLaurin, 2 very talented safeties at their respective programs in 2023, come over to play for the same program in 2024. Kentrell Webb and Tegan Wilk also come in, and kickers are people too. You know I got to show them some love. Line Wilkins is gone. He was the punter for the team last season. There should be a P in front of there. I apologize. So Jack Martin is coming back to do the place kicking duties. He really struggled last season, and Liam Doherty is a freshman that's supposed to be that primary punter for the Cougars. Running low on time here. I sort of rambled a little bit about this defense, but a lot of it is built through the transfer portal. That safety room, that defensive line room, that linebacker room, even that cornerback room. You're pretty much going to have 1, 2, maybe even 3 transfers in every single level of this defense be a notable contributor. How do they all mesh? How do they all fit? That's always the big question when you have a team that, look, lost a lot of talent from last year and lost a lot of experienced talent. There are a lot of graduates from this Houston defense last season. It's going to be a younger defense this year. It's going to be a retooled defense. And overall, we'll see how much it improves from 2023 and 2024, which leads me into the schedule for the Houston Cougars. If you guys don't know how this works, well, I'm about to tell you. Any game at home is underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Cougars are going to win pretty easily here. Well, any game in yellow will be a close competitive game, but a game that I still think Houston's going to be able to win, and any game in red is a loss. I'll spoil something right now. There are no games in green, and I probably will not be popular with Houston fans. I think Willie Fritz is going to see his struggles. On top of, this is a very, very tough schedule in the Big 12 Conference to open up your first season as a Power 4 head coach, that being Willie Fritz, but he is going to start off, his Houston Cougars, I should say, are going to start off the 2024 campaign with a win. Now, UNLV is going to be one of the better teams out of the Mountain West this season, even though Jaden Maeva is gone. They lose some really talented defensive pieces, but there is a lot of solid talent there. I like a lot of the players that UNLV has. However, going on the road to play at Houston, I think Donovan Smith will have himself a good game, and I like that matchup against the UNLV secondary. Houston wins that one in week 1. However, I don't see them going on the road in Norman and beating Oklahoma in week 2. I think Oklahoma is going to have a really talented team this year. Of course, they have made the switch from the Big 12 over to the SEC. And I think they're going to fare pretty well there. Jackson Arnold, I think, is going to be an absolute stud. He's got a lot of wide receivers coming back, including Deion Burks, who's coming in from Purdue through the transfer portal. And Oklahoma is just going to be a really talented team. The defense should see a step in the right direction. I like the Sooners in the SEC a lot this year, and that is the team that I don't think Houston is going to be able to beat. However, I do think they beat Rice, even though I see the Owls putting up a pretty good fight. Now, either of the two games there, UNLV or Rice, I could easily see Houston winning by more than 14 points. They're highlighted in yellow for caution. You can't sleep on either of those teams because I definitely do think that Houston could trip up and lose one of those two if they are not careful. Even though Rice loses Luke McCaffrey and some other solid talent, they get E.J. Warner from the portal, a quarterback from Temple that I've really liked, obviously the son of Kurt Warner, and they still have a lot of good talent there, but overall no match for the Houston Cougars and Willie Fritz. Houston beats Rice, a team that, again, Willie Fritz pretty familiar with, coaching in the American Athletic. Then you get to start out Big 12 play, and honestly, I don't think you could have asked for a better draw, at least to begin at Big 12 play. I'll talk about why it's not a very favorable draw here pretty much all video long. When they have to play the Cincinnati Bearcats, I think that's a win for the Houston Cougars. Look, Willie Fritz is going to know Cincinnati well. He coached against the Cincinnati Bearcats, coached against Luke Fickell, and obviously this is not the Luke Fickell Cincinnati Bearcats. Scott Satterfield, I think, still has some growth to do, but Willie Fritz is going to be prepared. He knows this team. He knows what they're about. He may not know the Scott Satterfield team, but I do think Houston gets at least one Big 12 win this year. I think it's a very favorable matchup against Cincinnati, and the Cougars go on the road and pick up a big win in week 4. And maybe that starts some momentum here, but a lot of the games they have in Big 12 play this year are against teams that, well, you could argue just have more talent than they do, and it starts with the Iowa State Cyclones, a mix of young and old. They're really young offensively. Rocco Becht is coming back. He's got some really good pieces around him in the running back and wide receiver room. Offensive line should be pretty good for him. The defense is a mix of young talent with veterans. I really like Bo Frailer at safety and a lot of other defensive pieces they have. Love Iowa State this year. Watch out for them in the Big 12 Conference. Even though it's a home game for Houston, it's a win for the Iowa State Cyclones. You got a road game coming up on a weekday nonetheless. That's a Friday game on the road against TCU, and you lose that one too. The Horned Frogs, yes, have some questions on the offensive line. They have a lot of defensive questions as the defense did not perform great last season. But overall, I still think TCU's got some solid talent on both sides of the ball, and I think the Horned Frogs are going to be able to hang with a lot of teams in the Big 12 this season. Road game for Houston, loss for the Cougars. They go through the first half of the season 3-3 before their first bye week, and then you just have an absolutely brutal stretch here. On the road at Kansas, that's a loss. Jalen Daniels is coming back. Devin Neal is coming back. Pretty much that entire wide receiver core is coming back. And the defense, while again, yes, that is the biggest question mark for Lance Leipold's group. Again, they've been sort of creeping up there and getting better and better year after year. They got a lot of talent on it, even after losing Austin Booker and some of their better defensive players from a season ago. I think the defense takes another step in the right direction. Kansas, another dangerous team in the Big 12 Conference this year, especially if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy. That's a loss for the Houston Cougars. They come back home for their next two games, but I think you lose both of them because they're two teams I really like and two quarterbacks I really like. And look, saying I really like Utah is an understatement. I love this Utah team. I love Kyle Whittingham as a head coach. I've loved him for years. And then I just love Cam Rising. I love this wide receiver core. I think it is one of the best group of wide receivers and best pass catchers when you include the tight ends. Brant Keithy coming back as well. He was hurt all of last year. That Cam Rising has ever had here at Utah, and we know the style of defense Kyle Whittingham is going to play. That's my front runner for the Big 12 Conference, and it's a loss for me for the Houston Cougars. It's also a loss to the Kansas State Wildcats. You got to go up against another really good quarterback here in Avery Johnson, who's got a lot of talent around him. And even though Kansas State loses a lot of really good pieces defensively, don't count Chris Kleiman out. That's a Kansas State team that's going to be rearing, ready to go again here in 2024, and it's a loss for the Houston Cougars. Okay, do things get better after their second bye week? not right away. You got to go on the road on a weekday nonetheless and prepare for the Arizona Wildcats, a team that I also think you're going to end up dropping a game to. I love Tyrone McMillan at wide receiver. I think he's going to be one of, if not the best wide receiver in the nation this season. Luther Burden could definitely challenge him for that, but his quarterback, Noah Fafita, is back. A lot of really talented defensive pieces do leave, but overall, I like what Brent Brennan's new squad has. I think Arizona's a pretty good team this year, and Houston beats Arizona beats the Houston Cougars. Two very manageable games at the end of the year, but I do think you drop both of these here as well, as just the struggles in Willie Fritz's first year continue. Baylor is a loss. I like DeQuan Finn, and that dual threat ability with him at the quarterback position gives this Houston defense some trouble. I like Baylor there. And then on the road against BYU, Provo is just a really tough place to play. I think Jake Retzlaff is going to be a solid piece at quarterback. BYU's got some pretty solid pieces on both sides of the football. And even though they even might not fare too well this year, I think they're a better team than Houston. And so the Cougars finish off Willie Fritz's first year 3-9, which I know is not what Cougar fans are going to hear, but I'll tell you this, Cougar fans, you got the right guy. Willie Fritz is going to grow this program to the heights that Dana Holgerson had it when Houston was back in the American Athletic Conference. Maybe it takes some time here. I think Willie Fritz is the right guy for the job, and maybe if everything goes right, I think Houston can break into the postseason. But overall, wait for Willie Fritz to get his guys, his system fully working, and Houston will start to climb the ranks in the Big 12 Conference. That's it for me for the Houston Cougars. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Next up, it's the Fresno State Bulldogs. Goodbye.